One of the things I realized after surgery is I had imposter syndrome. It wasn't really rampant during the daytime, but it was at night when I got undressed, and it was in the morning when I was getting dressed.
You weren't congruent.
Right.
What do you really know about people who are born transgender? Have you ever met someone who's transgender? Well, if you're like me, you're curious but hesitant to ask questions. Well, welcome to Demystifying the Transgender Journey. In our conversations with people who were born transgender, their families, friends, and the professionals who support them, we ask probing questions and discover insightful and educational answers. You can also find more information on our website, thetransgenderjourney.com. Now let's get right into today's episode. Previously on Demystifying the Transgender Journey,
Distractions are what helped me get through. That and psychiatrists who would prescribe lots of meds. I was living in a fog, 4.5 decades, repressing this, holding everything back, hiding, living with shame, fear, guilt. But what has shifted in me is, how do we change our thoughts so that we can be open to new beliefs and new possibilities? That began doing a lot of work on behaviors, mannerisms, language, how you walk, how you talk, basically opening up my mind to, yes, I can do this. That's the way I started, just looking at things. I'm going to try. We all make excuses not to try something. Whenever I start to feel that way, that's when I'm to lace up the sneakers and go out and do it, whatever it is. For the first 2 years, there was so many experiences every day that were new. The first time you're standing out there pumping gas into your car on a windy day. Hurts, the hair, the whole bit. This is a growth experience.
welcome to another episode of Demystifying the Transgender Journey. I'm your host, Lynn Murphy, founder of Women Who Push the Limits and Demystifying the Transgender Journey. If you've listened to our previous episodes, you know that we've had such an amazing conversation with Wendy about her life transitioning at the age of 67, when she knew from the time she was a child that she was born transgender. If you've missed any of those previous ones, be sure and find those, because they're chock full of very, very interesting and educational information. Today, we're continuing the conversation. Wendy's going to be talking about deconstructing that male socialization that was forced upon her when she knew she wasn't a boy. She knew she was a woman. And she's going to be talking about some of the firsts that she experienced, first time being a woman outwardly at the age of 67. Wendy, thank you for being here. And let's get right into today's episode. We're going to pick up where we left off last time.
I got sick and tired of hearing people on, politicians and religious people and talking about people like me.
And knowing nothing about them.
Exactly.
Yes.
I decided, okay, enough's enough. I'm going to stay myself out there in doing this. And that way, at least I'm a counter to them.
Thank goodness. Now, did religion play a part in your life at all?
I was raised in the Methodist Church. My parents were very active in the church. My father, for years, was a treasurer, and we did the Sunday collection plate and all of that fun stuff. I went to Methodist Youth Fellowship every Sunday night. It was kind of interesting. I don't know. I was friends with the minister's son and another guy. And I'll never forget the Sunday morning when friend Bill opens up Playboy to the centerfold and opens it like that. And we're not sitting in the back of the congregation. We're up in the
Did this in church?
This is in church. So anyway, there were some interesting times for sure. I went to college in my freshman year of college. I came home Christmas and made the announcement that I was all done with the church. I'm not going to Christmas services. I've discovered that I'm interested in Asian beliefs, Zen. I'm interested in meditation, opening up to new experiences. And part of that was also too because I was trying to find other answers for this. This is always lurking underneath anything my male facsimile ever did. So my parents were very upset with that announcement. And I got sent to the minister. So I started explaining to him how I feel and what I believe in and all of that. He starts asking me questions. We keep talking. And he told me, well, my son goes to Harvard. He's pretty much announced the same thing.
Oh, no.
Then he looked at me and he goes, in one sense, you're probably more religious than the people that come every Sunday.
I think a lot of that going on still.
So I went with it. My parents were not happy, of course, but that was the last religious activity in my life. There was the occasional Christmas services, which I was obligated to attend by one reason or another, and occasional wedding and things like that. Other than being active in any organized religion, I basically decided I didn't need an organized religion or a totally structured belief system like that. It requires me going to a building. I don't need that in my life.
Well, you seem like you're more spiritual and into, more self-awareness and the meditation when you said
Right.
more.
The last 9 years have really, really increased that considerably.
Oh, yeah.
I've gotten so much more aware, self-aware, and do a lot of the spiritual work to, stay connected. I really, in my previous years of life as a male with technology and all of that, I wasn't involved with people to the degree that I am now. And I really enjoy those connections far much more than I ever did before. Before, I couldn't connect with people.
Yes. And you were hiding things.
Right. I had this huge, huge secret that I was struggling to repress. Now, there are people who transitioned in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and even the early 2000s before the medical community accepted this as a treatable condition. But especially the ones in the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s, they were largely faced with the proposition of not remaining part of society after doing this.
So tell me more about that. When you said not part of society, they were ostracized?
Well, in 1970, I was told I should move to New York City because I was a freak, and that's where I should live, underground.
And turn tricks, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Didn't change in the rest of the 70s or the 80s, and even until the 90s. The best place you could possibly do this and live without much in the way of fear was San Francisco and New York City.
What about the famous people, before about Christine Jorgensen and Caitlyn Jenner? We don't even remember when she made her transition. But with celebrities, Chaz Bono, the celebrities that we think of, did that change anything?
The celebrities, first of all, when you have that kind of status and that kind of position in society, and you do this, you're immune from the blowback on it and all of that. But you do have the means and the wherewithal to keep living.
That's the difference, yeah.
There's a big difference in there in terms of the do this.
It means for the medical,
right,
whatever they needed.
The news commentaries that I watched when they're discussing Caitlyn Jenner, they said she had spent $70,000 on facial surgery. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know from one of my clients, you can spend a lot of money. Numbers I've heard are upwards of $20,000, $25,000.
Wow.
For facial feminization. They change the jawline, they change the brow bone structure, they do a lot of things.
But that's not
available to everybody. That is one of the things that's not covered by health insurance under transgender medical care. It should be, but it's not.
Well, you think of women who've had mastectomies, the reconstructive surgery, I think is covered. I don't know. Probably.
I believe it is, yes. I wait and see what happens and what developed naturally.
Yeah.
And perfectly happy with what I have.
Well, you look fabulous.
Thank you.
So many
Um,
things you had to learn. It's just so interesting to think about that kind of a transition, not just the surgery or not just, change that type of thing, but that transition of learning all those different things about how women move and act and speak and
right.
and
I
think.
call it deconstructing your socialization.
Well, you had a lot of years to deconstruct, didn't you?
Absolutely. And they don't go away easily.
Yeah,
You've got to work at it.
yeah.
Just in how you move, how you carry your body, and tend to just spread out. Here I am. I'm
Yeah.
taking up space.
Yes, yes. So as a man, did you take up space or were you still feeling more feminine and not taking up as much space?
That's a very delicate balance because what I had to do was any of those inclinations to do what would have felt more natural, I had to
Mhm.
repress those as well.
Oh, got it.
That would give me away. And when I was younger and living at home with my parents, what that would mean is, oh my God, we got to go commit him. Back to the psych center.
Let's do that lobotomy, huh?
There you go. Get those probes out.
Oh, what a frightening thing to think.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I said I've forgiven them for basically they did what they thought was right
yeah.
based on their life experiences. My father was born in 1918. My mother was born in 1925. Perfect 50s housewife.
Oh, leave it to Beaver.
Oh, yeah.
Father knows best.
Ozzy and Harriet.
Yes, grew up with all those.
Yep. Oh, God. My mother didn't have a checkbook. My mother didn't have a credit card. My father wrote the check for the groceries, for the grocery shop, and all of that good stuff. And I had dreamed of my mother helping me with this, only to realize now, much later in life, that was not to be.
Not capable of
Uh-uh.
doing that, especially going against your father.
Right.
She would have to have.
And my father's attitude toward women were they were property.
And
And
expectations and
Mhm.
women doing the kind of thing. Well, some were, but a lot of them just not the strength or not want to rock the boat. Blending in as a woman,
Right.
that's what your mother was doing in her version of a woman, right?
Exactly.
So, what of your family? You talked about 2 children. Are they both still alive?
No.
Yeah. You talk about that or not?
We only learn about as we go through life. ADHD, he was born in 1976. In the 1970s and in the 80s, this was not understood.
Mm-mm. No.
I was not meant to be a parent. I had too many of my own issues. And trying to figure out what to do with a child who is basically out of control at a moment's notice. No clue what to do.
Yeah.
And we had him going into a local school for some sort of analysis training, whatever.
Mhm.
And they didn't really know what was wrong with him. So as progressed and all they did, I'd say by late middle school, he had managed to get into alcohol and some drugs. And high school was horrible. And a number of times my wife and I got called into the school for meetings with the district people.
Mhm.
Basically, they're looking at us like it's our fault.
Yeah.
And they want to go into a voc tech program, and I totally supported that. But he refused.
Mm.
I think sophomore year of high school, he threatened to drop out and wanted to join the Army. I don't know if it was sophomore year or junior year or something, but it was one of those years. I called the recruiter and had him come to the house. I thought it would be great. There was no wars going on at the time, and at least they were saying they would actually see that he got a GED and that he would learn something. And he wasn't learning in school. I knew that. So my wife at the time basically was not in favor of doing that. They didn't do that. Who knows how it would have worked out? I don't know either. I think it was the summer of even 2018. My ex called and said he killed himself. According to the Philadelphia police, he had injected 12 packets of heroin.
How
And
sad. Yeah.
I wished I'd done differently and I had more knowledge,
Yeah.
but there are very limited resources. And every time we'd take him to therapy or anything like that.
Well, you best you can with what you've got at the time. And,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm sorry. That's a sad ending.
Talk about a new experience. I went to the funeral as
Oh.
Wendy, of course. I'd already been living this way and I'd already had surgery. So there was no way in hell I was going to put on a suit and tie to go to the funeral.
Yeah.
And part of the discussion was around, well, the neighbors and a lot of the relatives haven't seen you and don't know of you this way and blah, blah, blah.
No compromise.
So I did go to the funeral and I did go back to the house. So there was the usual days after and all of that stuff. So I went back to the house as well. At the funeral home, I basically sat alone. This is a trip. I learned in December of 2015 when I went to court to change my name. In Pennsylvania, where I was living at the time, you had to go to court and stand before the judge at a podium in the courtroom and announce. And my lawyer gave me the script that I was supposed to say about being transgender, living as a woman, and want to change my name from and to.
Well, that was the first.
So here I am standing on my lawyer, really nice girl, told me, Wendy, don't say a word after you say that. He's going to look for every way to refuse you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Most of Pennsylvania, a lot of Pennsylvania, the judges are Republican. And they will look for any way to refuse a transgender person this name change. So I kept my mouth shut. Every time he'd ask a question, I kind of glanced, and she told me that she would nudge me or whatever if I was supposed to answer. Otherwise, be quiet. It was a packed courtroom that day. I look at the courtroom. The men are sitting there like, not joking, jaws hanging open, just staring at me.
But they were there for other cases, right?
Yeah.
Yours was one of them.
Just one of the many.
And they were in shock.
And then what really surprised me even more so was about 2/3 of the women in the audience were sitting there with big smiles.
Oh, how interesting.
Yeah. I go back, sit down. My lawyer and I sit down on the bench we were sitting on, and the two guys that were beside me couldn't slide far enough away from me, like contact with me. They would want to become women.
Oh, it must rub off, huh?
Well, it was no different than in 2018 at the funeral.
Same thing.
A few people, guys who knew me before, would say something, just a few of them, and then kind of walk away. When I got back to the house, if I entered a room, most of the guys would leave and go to another room. It was the way it has been all along. If I'm out in public, I can go to a bar, sit at a bar, and strike up a conversation with the people around me, male or female, and no one knows, and no one cares.
No. But it's those people who knew you as a man.
Yeah.
They get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that guys who don't know about me, when they find out, they're still likely to get really weirded out and move off.
Interesting.
It's very typical, especially of heterosexual males. During my 5 years of living in New Hope, Pennsylvania was the San Francisco of the East during the 80s, I think. Large gay community. So I figured living there, they're going to know all about me. Not even close. They knew I was the T of LGBT, but that's about it.
Well, so let's talk about sexuality of this.
It's different for a lot of people going through this. Mine is just one snapshot of that experience, but I'm also not that unusual. I knew from childhood and especially in like middle school years, my male facsimile was supposed to be attracted to girls.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't like because that involved hiding my secret. And that involved making connections with people and that's all high risk. And I just didn't want to do that. In terms of whether or not I was sexually attracted to girls, it's because I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Was I at the boys? Oh, hell no. I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't gay.
Yeah.
In my fantasies, I would lie there and think to myself about what it would be like to really be Wendy. There were times in old fantasies and my stories that I told myself, yeah, I had a boyfriend. It was Wendy and I had a boyfriend.
Yeah.
But did I want a boyfriend as my male facsimile? Oh, hell no. Didn't even know what that would look like or feel like or like, and no attraction to it. Whereas my friend, who people like me skeeved him out, he knew he was attracted to boys at a young age. He knew what he was, that he was one of the G's.
Yeah.
And he repressed it, did all the same stuff I did. He had a career, he had a wife, he had a family, he had the house, he had the whole bit, and then finally came out after all of that. And that was one of the first things I pointed out in our first conversation. We did all the same stuff. You just became a G, I became a T. So, fast forward to August of 2017, August 31st of surgery. Basically, what I told the guys was I was getting my birth defect fixed.
Which talk about freak out the gay guys, right?
Oh, yeah. Invariably, there would be someone at happy hour grabbing their crotch going, Wendy, how can you do that?
Because they were pretty proud of that piece of their body, right?
There you go.
But it never fit for you.
No, it wasn't.
Didn't belong, huh?
I was falling asleep as a little kid. It's going, I wish it would fall off in the morning and my closet would be full of dresses.
As a young child, huh? You.
Oh, yeah. There was no doubt in mind.
Yeah.
I saw Stephanie for 5 years. And I think during our last few years together, it was maybe once a month or something like that. I did check-ins, check with my guru,
Yeah.
So I asked her what my sexual orientation is going to be like once I have the surgery. I definitely am not any more attracted to women because I am living as one, but no, that's not me. But so I don't know how this is going to work after. And her words to me were pretty much the same as they had been in their other circumstances. You'll figure it out when you get there.
Okay.
And she was right. I had my surgery. I had my holy shit, you finally did it moment on 30th Street, going back for one of my post-op follow-up Blue Bond. And I was looking at myself in the black glass of the storefront windows, the reflection. And that was like a huge moment for me. Wow, you finally did this. Finally complete. No longer an imposter. Because that's one of the things I realized after surgery is I had imposter syndrome. It wasn't really rampant during the daytime, but it was at night when I got undressed. And it was in the morning when I was getting dressed.
You weren't congruent.
Right. I still had wrong anatomy.
But you've been taking hormones, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So there were some body changes.
Fat distribution changes and breast development. By that point, I was pretty much into the B cup area, bra size. I was quite satisfied. Then after surgery, recovery period, that generally takes about 6 to usually no more than 9 months, sometimes as much as 12. It depends on the surgery and if there was complications or anything like that. But generally, it's about 6 months. I ran into the hospital on that morning at 5:45. Couldn't wait to get there. Didn't sleep the night before. No sense in doing that. I'm too excited, and I've got to leave my place by 4 a.m. So just stay up, be happy, do your thing.
And you're going to sleep after surgery anyway, so what
That's
difference?
right. Going to sleep the whole day away.
Yeah.
I go in, the anesthesiologist was great, explained everything he was going to do. My only concern was nausea after. He said, nope, I put stuff in there so that won't happen to you. Dr. Bluebomb poked her head in and go, you ready, Wendy? Oh, yeah, born ready. She goes, that's what I figured. See you inside. The nurse came in and walked me inside. I lay down on this table. It's kind of Y-shaped, of course. There's all these machines around. I actually had 2 surgeons on me, Dr. Rachel Bluebond and Dr. Lee Zhao. And he's also NYU's resident expert on robotic surgery.
Oh.
So one of the things that they described that they would do to me is there's work that has to be done on the outside to make everything look real. And then there's work that needs to be done on the inside. And rather than go and kind of do things blindly from the outside, they cut a little slice above my navel, inserted lights, inflated me, lights, action, camera, and in go to tools, and they do their thing on the inside too, with robotics.
Amazing what they can do.
Yeah. And I'm convinced that's why I had so little pain from the entire process. The discharge nurse, I was in the hospital for 5 days. They had the new vagina. They had a what they call a wound vac in there, which drew out any blood or anything that was happening. The usual, all of that other stuff. I was wired up.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it was my second day. They had me doing laps around the hospital floor.
Okay, but move.
They just wanted me to walk around once. I said, no, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
And I sped up the pace and I'm lapping people.
Oh, wonderful.
So
you felt pretty good then.
I was feeling fine. The most they ever gave me, the discharge nurse, was, the industrial strength Tylenol and it.
No
narcotics, painkillers.
Good for you. That's terrific.
And a lot of her patients are the same. And I know it's got to be due to the surgery techniques.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my feeling. But it was so worthwhile going to NYU and having that experience. And then the follow-up visits and all of that. And of course, there's scar tissue that forms with almost every plastic surgery. And she takes care of that during that process, during the healing process. And I had major problems.
That's wonderful.
I became intimately familiar with pads.
Okay.
I will never have a period, but the surgery leaves you with, drainages and all of that stuff. Yeah. I became very familiar with Always Ultras, especially for the first year.
So you had the experience that we all had, that women grew up as women, that we had for decades.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you got to get so you could.
Yeah.
I mean, it was different reason for it, but you get.
I'd leave New York City and train back to Hamilton, New Jersey, and drive back to New Hope, usually with the equivalent of a pillow down there. It was an interesting experience, but yeah, it was one of those new experiences.
Definitely a first.
Definitely a first. And I have for their usefulness.
Well, when I was growing up, we didn't have the stun pads. We had to wear those Those belts.
Oh, yeah. I saw
Those-
those from my mother.
Saw those, yeah. And that was a real joy.
Oh, I just imagine what that would be like.
The pads were about this thick. They didn't have the plastic liners and all that kind of
Uh-huh.
stuff.
Uh-huh.
So, well, we got to experience the joy.
One of those things. That's something that and they're going to go through this is, get familiar.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be part of life.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's what it is. You wanted this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 6 months in or so, she goes, well, Wendy, you're all healed, ready for sex. I did have a conversation with her that not only no one's ever going to know that what I have was surgically created. She said, even your first visit to a gynecologist, you're not going to have a clue.
Really?
Yeah.
It's that surgery's that good, huh? Amazing.
And I into Women's Princeton Health. The girl took me into the waiting room to wait for the gynecologist to come in. And she starts asking me all this laundry list of questions. Not at all applicable.
Your first period, your last period. Have you ever been pregnant? Yeah.
And I said, okay, we're gonna abbreviate this. This was surgically created, so almost none of those questions apply. He goes, oh, really? Oh, okay. And okay, so I figured, well, she's gonna tell the doctor. And exchanges pleasantries, picks up the chart, looks at me, grabs the speculum, and said, okay, what we got going on here? To that effect. In goes the speculum. Oh, okay. I said, what? She goes, when did you have a hysterectomy? That's what it looked like to her.
No kidding.
Yep.
Wow. So she couldn't even tell.
So when I started talk, I said, I thought you would be told, but no. When I explained it to her, she goes, I've done this before.
Wow. No kidding, huh?
Okay. So within the medical field, I have had my share of experiences with this. And she gave me the exam and everything looked fine. She had some things I needed to do and I did, and that's fine. And but we had a whole conversation about everything I went through and all of that. It was really interesting. And she was a very nice person, but that confirmed for me everything looks fine. And in terms of sexual orientation, well, I had to find out.
Well, of course you did. You're never too old, right?
Right, exactly. I think I was 70 at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, at least 70, maybe heading for 71. I don't know. Anyway, I decided, okay, I'm going to go and try. I tried one of the dating sites and I started meeting people. And finally, I met someone that seemed interesting and went out on 3 dates. And I think it was either the third or the fourth that I decided, okay, let's see where this goes.
See if things work, huh?
And see how I would feel about it. Because at this point, I still have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did enjoy being out on dates. I did with them. What I have since discovered is that a lot of guys are definitely not good at sharing feelings.
No surprise to most of us.
Right. And don't even want to even discuss it.
No.
So when I ask, how do you feel about something? That's an irrelevant question.
Yeah. Does not compute.
No. But what I decided, it was going to be a potentially unnerving experience.
I'm sure.
First time to have sex with a man.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up watching New York City TV, those movies from the 40s and 50s where the woman comes out and says, let me go get into something more comfortable. I decided, what the hell? I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
So in my purse, I had my Victoria's Secret panties,
Yeah.
top, and a matching robe.
Ooh, nice. See, that first came handy, didn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And I was still wearing my black heels.
Ah, okay.
So I said, I'm going to get into something more comfortable. Went in the bathroom, changed, came out. I thought he was mind blown. Took me in his arms, kissed me, and off we went to the bedroom.
Hey, so he didn't have any problem
No,
who he knew you were
nope. Well,
then, but he
he
didn't know. You
he
had
had no clue.
yeah.
At this point, I was pretty stealth most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Stealth meaning to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
The gay community knew all about me. And a lot of people in town that knew me from hanging out around town and being social and all of that other good stuff, they knew about me. But there was also a lot of people who had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and at the time, I was working as a cashier in a supermarket, and most of the people I worked with there had no idea.
Yeah.
And anyway, so the whole sexual experience was, to say more than mind blowing.
Amazing then.
Yeah, far better than anything I had ever experienced as a guy.
It is.
Awesome. Full body involvement,
Yeah.
very emotional involvement.
Oh,
Just felt really, really good.
sounds fantastic. It was a great first.
Great first.
Yeah.
Over the course of 2018 and 2019, never revealing to any of them.
Yeah.
2020 comes. So 2020 was the year that I decided I was going to my coaching work and put it online. And I hired a business coach and I started working on that. And that's how I spent the pandemic, was setting everything up for that.
Mm-hmm.
And December of 2020, I put myself on Instagram and on Facebook with my business, Facebook and Instagram. And I put up my website that year, December 2020. And I think it was maybe about 4 or 5 days passed by. And I get this message on Instagram. Wendy, I had no idea. Okay, that was the last guy I dated. So we went back and forth with he had no idea. And I said, oh, about what? I wanted him to say the words, be direct.
Yes.
Have a conversation with me about it.
Yes.
He didn't do that.
He didn't. Yeah.
No, he just said, I had no idea. I said, well, are you angry? Are you upset? How do you feel? Again, there's that
All those feelings. Ask him what he thinks, maybe.
Yeah.
Feelings, not so much.
Not so much. So he said, all I ever saw, beautiful, sexy woman. And I said, well, yeah.
That's what you are.
That's what I would hope you would have seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, okay, what's going on? Forget the exact word he used, just this moment. He was basically just pondering the whole situation. And I said, well, let me know, and left it at that.
Have you heard from him?
No, still follows me on Instagram though.
But he had a lot of pondering to do.
Yeah, that wasn't the right word, but I forget the exact word he used. But once I got online and once I started my coaching work and all of that, I had to put something. 2021, I started dating again. And this time I put it in my profile. It was kind of like the third paragraph of my profile. I transitioned, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I put it very nicely and leave it open to conversation. Got me the wrong kind of attention.
Oh, yeah. Were we talking about those tranny chasers? Is that the
Exactly.
thing? Yeah.
We're looking at this as a fetish. There is a lot of that as well.
Is there?
So I basically stopped dating, and in 2022, I just didn't have the time or the bandwidth for with it, and I was basically hoping that at some point I would just meet somebody. the organic, old-fashioned way.
But that hasn't happened yet?
Nope,
Yeah,
it may.
it may. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
when it's ready.
See, because you deserve somebody who's going to honor you for who you are. And
Exactly.
you know that. So,
I did try changing my dating Manhattan, but Manhattan zip code.
okay.
Figuring in an urban environment like that, I'm more likely to meet who are open to possibility. And I could be a really great girlfriend.
Did that make a difference?
Actually, it did kind of. I had two guys at various times I was messaging back and forth with and phone conversations. I knew of a particular Italian restaurant that was really nice, mid-price range, wouldn't break the bank or anything like that. And it was near Penn Station
Okay.
on 8th Avenue. I proposed that we meet there, either for drinks at the bar or, a lunch or a light dinner or whatever. And everything with both of them at different times were all set to go. And then they suddenly disappeared. This is after like a month of messaging and conversation and stuff like that. Still wasn't seeing Stephanie at the time, but I did talk to her and I said, here's what's going on. This happened to me twice now. Everything seemed like it was just going so well. We had a connection, we had common interests, we had stuff that we could talk about. And then it comes closer to meeting and they vanish. And one of the things that she offered me was, well, you not only have to find a guy who, if he knows about your past, he's going to be okay with that. But he also has to be okay with his friends, his relatives. He has to be okay with them finding out about you too.
Oh,
It's not something that you would ever want to go and announce. I wouldn't necessarily do that.
yeah.
But they can Google me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And find out whatever they want to find out.
So even if he's open to that, if he's getting pressure from friends and family, then he doesn't want to do that.
Or if it winds up them questioning him.
Questioning his manhood?
Exactly.
Because goodness sakes.
Oh, that was a man. Well,
see, and that's why we need to be having these conversations so people understand this.
I was never a man.
Yeah, yeah. You had that facsimile.
Yeah, I was forced to live that way.
Yeah, like a costume or something you couldn't take off, but that was never you.
One of my friends asked me from high school days, if your parents had said you could go to school as a girl, would you have gone? Oh, happily.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought twice about it. Yeah, I'm going to get teased and all of that other stuff. But no, I would have thought twice about it.
Yeah.
That's how strong that feeling was inside me.
And that would have been preferable to stuffing all the stuff that you had to.
I don't think I achieved anywhere near what I could have academically and professionally in life. I didn't come close to my potential. I know how I feel now and how I am now. Had I been that way back in my late teens and early 20s and all the way through, things could have been very different.
Yeah, yeah.
Because this affected everything from my academic work and aspect of my professional life. No way in hell could I be a manager, because that would be putting me out in front of people like that. Professionally in corporate America, I got up to like a very senior level project manager type. That was a different role. It was one that I was okay with, relatively comfortable with. But had I been able to actually be me, what my intellect and my personality change and everything else, what could I have done then?
Yeah, if you'd done that earlier, and you talk about the philosophies, religions, spirituality, that type of thing.
Mhm.
And I always look at things and wonder that there's a reason why things happen the way they do and at the time that they do.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if you've done some self-reflection on that. You seem like the kind of person that does a lot of self-reflection.
A lot.
Has there been anything that you back and say, even after what you just said, which is, you could have done so much more if you'd been allowed to have the opportunity to, in hindsight, some sort of reason why maybe you didn't until this point or until 2015?
I've thought about that, and I just, because of the social situations within our society and how this was always viewed, people like me were made to feel weird.
Yeah. The freak, like they called you, right?
Exactly. Could I have done it and done it in a different way? I've been happy. I don't know. Can't go back and relive that. That's one of the other things that I've had to do is let go of any of those regrets.
Yeah.
No regrets.
Yeah.
In my first few therapy sessions, I got rid of regrets, and I knew that I had to start really working on that.
Well, you had so much to hang on to, and it's almost like the universe. I'm hearing this. Okay, Wendy, just on a few more years, or and then you got to the point where you're such a happy experience.
Oh God, yes.
I hear you running to go get your surgery and easily your wife about, okay, fine, we're gonna have a divorce,
Mhm.
which might have been if you'd had it years earlier.
It
So
could have been, yes, very much so.
So then you're having this amazing experience and you're so happy. And you,
Mhm.
you told me that story last time about you. The doctor said, you weren't diabetic anymore. You didn't have cholesterol. You'd lost
Mhm.
70 pounds.
Right.
And your comment was,
Because I'm happy.
yeah,
It all starts with that.
it starts with that. And you get to explaining it and, you're not pushing anything on anybody, but you're
No.
open and you're saying, I'm an open book. Ask me any questions. It's for people to know.
You're the first person to actually talk with me about my sexual orientation.
Well, see, now my motto is women who push the limits. So, I'm demonstrating that.
Perfect.
And I'm pushing you to push your limits too.
And I'm grateful for you doing that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being open to that and encouraging that.
I'm a heterosexual woman.
Yeah. Well, and when you're talking about when we were younger, you said sex when you were in your male facsimile wasn't all that great, and that you kind of forced yourself to.
It felt wrong because I was in the body.
Yeah, the wrong body. And you kind of forced yourself things.
Right.
Kind of date, marry.
You got a checklist. It's the normal. Got to check those boxes.
Yeah, but what a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm. It will be great to hear and see what some of the comments are.
Yes. Oh, Wendy, it's amazing.
I'm grateful to be doing this with you.
Thank you.
Really. And I look forward to our next session too.
We've had such amazing conversations today, and stay tuned because we are going to have more from Wendy. You can find out more about Wendy at her website, meetwendycole.com. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure and like, subscribe, share, rate. Be sure and share this out to people who you think would be interested, because our whole goal is to educate people about people who were born transgender. The stories are so important. So please share those. Please tune in next time. I'm your host, Lynn Murphy, founder of Women Who Push the Limits. And we will see you next time on Demystifying the Transgender Journey. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Demystifying the Transgender Journey. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode of our fascinating interviews. You can also find more information on our website, thetransgenderjourney.com. So until next time, stay curious and stay kind.